Toast Bites. Chomp.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Toast Bites, where we take a look at some fantastic indie games I played that didn't get a standalone video on my channel. A link to each game is in the description, and you can check out more episodes of Toast Bites at any time by clicking the card icon. Let's get into it!
Number 1.
Lucid Dream is an emotional point-and-click adventure where you play as Lucy, a young wheelchair-bound girl set out on a journey to save her sick mother. The game leans well into its aesthetic, which is dark and surreal, with much of its underlying themes represented in the environment as well as in its premise, which sees Lucy traveling through various dreamscapes in search of help. While the story is presented in a way that's almost as disjointed as the dreams themselves, Lucy serves as an anchor that bridges it all together, so the game itself doesn't feel convoluted or random. There are also a number of curious characters to encounter with intriguing personalities, keeping the journey fresh and the worlds lived in instead of isolated. Unlike other point-and-clicks, or packs if you're lazy, that suffer from a lack of variety or charm to their puzzles, or otherwise implement them in a way that detracts from the game, Lucid Dream does a good job of balancing the complexity of its puzzles with the story's pacing and tone in clever ways. That said, the solutions aren't always obvious, and even when they are, you may not know exactly how the game wants you to go about it. So you may find yourself resorting to the old tried-and-true method of clicking everything you see and trying to combine everything you have, whether it would make sense or not. I love the puzzles overall, but there's certainly an argument to be made that not all of them have the best design. But with nearly a dozen hand-drawn chapters, each supported by its own original music, the game is a constant treat for the ears and eyes, especially if you're a fan of surrealist storybook macabre, which I am. And the story, while sad, is a lovely one worth seeing through to the end. Now, Lucid Dream released back in October, but like all the games on this list, I just hadn't gotten around to talking about it yet. You can try out the demo or buy the full game now on Steam. Playtime is about 6 to 8 hours, and I think it's a good pick if you love artful games with off-kilter environments.
Number 2.
Incredible Mandy is a gorgeous action-adventure / 3D puzzle platformer that follows the story of siblings who've lost their memory of one another. Now, that beautiful plot is punctuated by equally beautiful landscapes with a soft, flowing aesthetic very similar to Rhyme, and the traditionally animated scenes are a welcomed incorporation. But the standout here is the puzzles, which can range from easy to challenging, yet are generally well-balanced and introduce interesting mechanics into the game. Even your light sword is used in clever ways beyond combat, and it's fun to see what the game will throw at you next. The sound design is pitch perfect for each environment, and the music is wonderful, imparting that sweeping RPG vibe. So if you like games with scores that enhance your immersion, Incredible Mandy won't disappoint. Still, the game isn't without its flaws. You can encounter bugs, though the developer has been pretty good with updates, the camera isn't always your friend, and movement isn't always as fluid as you'd like. Most notably, the combat can leave a bit to be desired. And while the boss battles are great, the enemies throughout the levels aren't that smart, and engaging them can feel a bit lackluster with melee attacks that grow stale and repetitive without the flourish of combo chains and the like. Thankfully, melee isn't the only type of combat there is, and it's not what the game is about. You can also choose a harder difficulty for your playthrough if you want to up the stakes. Overall, with 8 distinct puzzle-packed chapters capped off with unique bosses to defeat, there's a lot to see here, and with a playtime of around 15 hours, a lot of time to see it. I'd say Incredible Mandy is worth the buy, but I played the demo and only touched on parts of the full game, so feel free to take my opinion with a grain of salt. And even though I don't think the demo does the game justice, I'd still recommend trying the demo before making a decision. You can download it now, or go ahead and buy the game on Steam.
Number 3.
If you're one of my toasty subscribers, which you should be, so hop on board the breakfast train, you'll know I'm a fan of walking sims, or I at least don't see that as an insult. So I've played a lot of these low-poly games that amount to nothing more than a safari of pretty colors and shapes, and when I launched Inside the Void, I expected more of the same. I was wrong. It's a narrative-driven exploration game where exposition hinges on notes you find in the environment, a pretty standard mechanic for games of this sort. Its strength, however, is in the story it tells through those notes, and how things progress as you explore more of the world. Inside the Void is one of those games that truly feels like its name. From the beginning, there was this nowhere emptiness that ironically got worse the more things I found. Even the sounds were unnerving, with deep booms and rumbles underscored by this constant oppressive hum reminiscent of that moment in a science fiction film right before the shit hits the proverbial fan. I don't want to spoil where the game goes or how it gets there, but I will say that if your cup of tea is atmosphere and dread done in a way that's simple yet effective, you'll want to drink this one up. You can download Inside the Void for free right now on itch, and for a game that only takes around 20 to 30 minutes to play, there's really no excuse not to try it.
Number 4.
Intertwined is a short first-person adventure game where you explore what looks like an abandoned village, restoring life as you go. The character is beautifully designed, which almost makes it a shame that you play from a first-person perspective, but the view more than makes up for it. The world is small with diverse terrain, and a lot of charm was sprinkled around to give it this air of magic. The game is linear, but there are environmental cues to keep you headed in the right direction anyway, from sparkling lights to the fish you revive, so you can have fun exploring without worrying about getting lost. And while the emphasis is clearly meant to be on parkour, I'll be the one dissenting opinion out there because I hesitate to call it a parkour game. To me, parkour is about navigating an environment as quickly and smoothly as possible with little to no interruption in the flow of movement. Translating that into a game means giving the player a sense of speed and constant momentum, with the environment designed in a way that allows for seamless transitions into slides, mantling, and rolls that feel as good as they look. And while you can slide, jump, and scale walls and intertwined, and the earlier part of the game that serves mainly as a tutorial is laid out well for you to string these movements together, I find the game overall just as in keeping with a platformer. With parkour, elements in the environment are merely stepping stones that offer different ways to push forward. With a platformer, these elements are obstacles that need to be avoided or overcome, and I see just as much of that influence here. Much of the world can be explored on the ground, with places to jump or climb simply being the only way to access the next area or avoid death. There's a lot of stopping to interact with collectibles and puzzles, as well as a lot of waiting for paths to open. So I'd call it Parkour Platformer Light, which doesn't make it any worse. It's a very enjoyable game that does mostly feel good to play, with its ethereal sound design and calming song accentuated by musical tones scattered throughout. Playtime is under 20 minutes depending on how long you putz around soaking up the sights or looking for secrets to unlock, and you can download it right now for free on itch.
Number 5.
When I think of procedural mesh geometry modification on runtime, I have to ask myself why I'd be thinking of technical terms that don't apply to me because I'm not a developer. They do, however, apply to this game. LIFF, or LIF, or as I've decided to call it, Life, because you play as the god of life, is a journey into a world inspired by Impressionist paintings. The premise is a familiar one. Good discovers darkness falling over the land, good removes darkness, land becomes not dark again. So once you jump into the game, you'll know exactly where to go and what to do, though the game does guide you here and there, either with button prompts or by centering the camera on areas of note. Now, as lovely as the visuals are, the real beauty here is in the mechanics. The game allows you to deform or remove objects in the environment, as well as rebuild and create them on the fly with little more than a brushstroke. It's insanely impressive, because while there are obviously going to be some limitations, that line is much farther out than I thought it would be. Not only was I able to remove significant portions of the world, I was able to create new paths to walk on pretty much anywhere. Of course, being a gamer, I felt compelled to test just how far I could go and where, creating paths down the mountainside, through trees, over obstacles, until I inevitably got myself stuck floating in the air on a floral cloud I created that I couldn't destroy and couldn't create another to walk down from. But I regret nothing, because being an active participant in a world with that level of design was an experience. Every inch of the game is vibrant, and the rendered distance made it appear so much more expansive and grand. That said, it's possible the game has too much detail, because it sometimes went from impressionist to messinist. It never ceased to be stylish and pretty, but it definitely started to resemble what you'd get if you swallowed a bucket of paint full of potpourri and puked it onto a canvas. So I think the game would have benefited either from a more minimalist art style or palette, or maybe even just a more pared-down approach that emphasizes variety over scale. Like a few visibly different biomes attractively separated, instead of this many areas over this much space, all running together with core elements that are all visually the same. Then again, if you're going to try this kind of project, you might as well go all in. Keep in mind, I didn't build my computer for gaming, so it's no powerhouse by any means, and yet the game ran fairly well, so if you're concerned about it being resource intensive, I'd say just go for it and see how your system handles it. It may play more smoothly than you think. You'll probably want to play this one with a gamepad though, and I can't say how long it'll take you to get through it because there are just so many ways to do it and there's so much to see. Instead, I'll say that the playtime falls somewhere between awesome and dope, and I strongly recommend giving Le Livre a shot, if only for the coolness factor, and you can download it for free right now on itch. Now here's a quick look at some bonus games, and remember that some of the games I mentioned are still works in progress, so what I'm showing you may not reflect the final release.
Bonus games.
That's it for this episode of Toast Bites. If you like these games or hated them, let me know in the comments and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. I'll be back soon with a peek at even more great indie games for you to share. Until then, see you on the plate!